The cow.
Quorum. Yes, the cow. We'll have
But we
to
do have the quorum,
bring
though.
John in. Yes, we do. So this will be a real meeting. And we won't realize that at the end.
We got 1 minute.
Okay.
Or less.
Okay. Okay.
It's now 6:30.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order of Harvard's Administration Committee, March 19th, 2025. It is 6:30 p.m. The roll call, Alderman Gorman, Alderman Perkins, Alderman Carncross, and myself are all present, along with the mayor and Deb. There's no public present, so we don't have any public comment tonight. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from January 15th and February 15th, 2025?
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? I did have a question. Okay. Just wondering, on the, we had talked about in January, the amending the electronic attendance ordinance about that, and that was, staff was going to bring something back to the committee, is what I noticed. So, and it said at the next city council meeting, but we didn't make that change, did we?
As far as I know, I have not seen anything. It did not come back to this committee
No.
yet, correct?
No.
Okay.
So if that can just come back in
In
April.
April?
Yeah.
I do know that, I believe it was Lou that said they would have, whatever they came back with, they'd have to go through TJ first,
Okay.
just to make sure that we were within
I'm not
state
sure I've
compliance.
seen the vision come back for it.
Yeah.
You yet.
Yeah. Okay.
I will check with him on that.
Just because I mean, it'll be after me, but it wouldn't make much sense to get an ordinance back that we then talk about and then goes
Then
to,
goes
it might as
to-
well go to
yeah.
legal first.
Yeah, because we had the conversation,
Yeah.
in January and sort of gave the direction, and it's like, okay, we'll go figure out the details
Okay.
and then bring it back when it's ready. So I was just checking.
Make a change to the minutes so that it says it instead of review at next city council meeting, review at the April administrative.
Oh, I don't know, should we change the minutes? I don't know that we,
I don't think we need to change
No.
the minutes, just
Yeah.
that it got pushed off. We could note in these minutes
Yeah.
tonight that it got pushed off.
Yeah.
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 Okay. All right.
Works for me.
so that was my only question. All in favor?
All right.
Okay, opposed? Okay, we have.
Real
we
quick,
have
I'm
minutes.
sorry, I'm not used to doing this. Can you remind me who moved and who seconded that?
I motioned and I believe.
Charlie
yeah,
seconded.
Charlie.
That's what I thought, I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, discussion on policy for elected officials and staff interactions. I'd like to thank Charlie for being very clever about creating a draft policy for us, which you all have in your packet. Yeah, so
It's underneath the staple, or the,
the paperclip, big
paperclip
paperclip
piece.
section, which was from February. So I think overall, this is a good framework for, and it's very clear. I'm assuming that there are some things we want to tweak, but I think in terms of getting us a good start, and, 95% of the way there. I feel good about this. It seems to cover all of the issues that we've talked about over time. So what are the specific comments, questions that folks have?
I like what Charlie's got here. I mean, any professional organization, any work, any place of business generally has, in their, what do you call it, their employee handbook, is usually some kind of policy on proper communication, what's expected, that kind of thing. And I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have something in writing that clarifies that. Obviously, like the general principles are common sense things, like, but having it in writing, codified as part of our, policies and procedures, I think is great. Within certain aspects, there's a limitation, obviously, for elected officials as far as teeth, just because there's laws and how things get handled. But at the same time, I do think this is really good to have something in writing that is clear. It's especially like for those of us that have been doing this for a while, we don't really have much of an issue. But people coming in, it's something they can read, they can understand, they know what type of communications are expected and because we didn't know that.
Yeah.
We didn't know who we had talked to other than, at the time it was like, just talk to Dave.
Right.
So, no, this is good. Nice work, Charlie. I appreciate this.
How long does this take you, Charlie?
5 minutes.
To type all this up, you must
Seriously.
be
True.
Chat GPT to
I
the
use
rescue.
Gemini,
Yeah.
and I couldn't believe what it came. I literally, the only change I made on this is city manager to city administrator. I mean, that's the only. I couldn't believe it. I said, "Holy crap! I could take the rest of the afternoon off." But
I'd make a recommendation from the mayor's office under enforcement and interpretation. I think what's written in item 2 is appropriate for city staff. But I think if there's an issue with
Council.
person with council, that should not go to the city administrator, it should go to
Mayor.
Well, maybe we have a separate, maybe like break it up so that like one is, city staff, addressed, or is under the purview of the city administrator, elected officials of the city council under the purview of the mayor. Unless it's the
That'd
mayor.
be my recommendation.
Unless it's the
Just
mayor,
because,
then we've got bigger problems.
It's elected officials
Yeah.
versus,
Right.
an
Yeah.
I agree.
appointed staff member. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Of course.
that makes sense.
Yeah. I have a question for the restricted communication on contract negotiations. Is that meaning only, like, of course, we're not going to be the ones in there negotiating with everyone? It's not mean that we don't get the contracts shown to us, like, say the city administrator contract before we approve it type thing, and we can still see it, right, before we approve it?
That's how I would interpret it.
I just want to make sure it's not, depending on who's here, in the next 4, 5, 6 years, maybe put that in there, because I guess, and this is me knowing legal people, you can interpret that a different way, saying, nope, you can't be involved even approving the contract type thing.
Well, officially, we don't have any involvement in the negotiation or even the approval of the contract.
Yeah, we do.
Under the,
We
You
approve
approve
the
the
contracts.
You approve, when
We-
there's a contract, you approve
what's
the
negotiated.
mayor
Right.
to enter into the
That's what I
contract.
was getting to. We don't actually say like, this is the contract, we approve of the contract. We approve of the mayor to enter into the contract.
And typically contracts come before this body,
Yeah.
although there are times where it's been, there is a little bit of leeway. And I think it depends on contract to contract, but there's
Yeah.
been times where the language was authorize the mayor to negotiate and sign the contract within the parameters that
Right.
the council had set.
Yes.
The key word here is interfere.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the key word,
Yeah.
and that's what they're trying to eliminate is
Yeah.
interference in that process.
Right.
Well, I just addressing, I mean, and Matt Scott, I agree with Matt. I think that's a valid concern is that when a contract is being negotiated by the city to enter into, I think that this board should have a chance to review that contract prior to it being signed.
Example
Yes.
of that,
But not all cases, just because of the way the ordinance is we authorize the mayor enters into those agreements on our behalf. So I get it, the way that's worded is the mayor may or may not bring it before the board. We've already authorized them to enter into it. This is the contract, you can't, no takesy backsies kind of thing. So,
an example of bringing it back to the council would be real estate transaction, right? Like, hey, we went and negotiated a price, we've got an idea, we would come back to the council, go into closed session, say, hey, this is.
But that's not interference.
Yes, that is not interference.
And that's why I'm just making sure that's in there, because I don't want someone to, later on, when we're all gone, say, oh, and become the dictator and say, no, hey, no, you don't have any say to this, because I can enter any contract I want, and you don't have to know about it.
when
Again, I think this is to prevent an alderman, for example,
from
from going to like one or two of the people who are going to bid on a contract and saying, don't sign this or don't do this. I
Right.
want you to change this without,
Yeah, going through
that's what this is for.
Oh, of
Right,
course,
that's
yeah,
why
I
I'm
agree.
hoping
Well, then just leave it.
I'm just making sure, but Charlie, and I understand that. I read it like that, but then I also read, and that's just because, unfortunately, I work with the attorney who has they can interpret it a different way.
I mean, this wouldn't be obviously legally binding as far as like it's advised not to do that. Now, if somebody was to try to do that, there would be some serious liability issues for that person and, involving themselves in contract negotiations against that. But I think here, I don't think that this is going to cause a problem with that, but I agree that I think that's something that we want to make, maybe not in here, but that's something that just, we've always wanted to be involved in contracts as far as like what's going on prior, so we know what's going on prior to actually entering into the contract. But,
Exactly.
Well, and I
But
think
the
we
mayor also
could-
has a lot of
yeah.
leeway on that to kind of get around that if they chose. In this case, Mike has always been on the forefront and been transparent, just like with hiring city staff and the interviewing. We
Yeah.
didn't have to be involved in any of that or entering those people into the contract. The mayor has the purview to just do that
Right.
without even including us if they choose. So that's just something to keep in mind for
Right.
future administrations. We like it that way, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that we can keep it that way.
Well, and I think, what I would suggest, and don't ask me what the sentence should be, but I would think that right at that first paragraph, we could just have a sentence that just clarifies that this does not supersede or negate any of the legislative functions and whatever that the council has.
I think maybe to that
Yeah.
issue, instead of calling it rules, call it a policy. Policies are not hard and fast. They're,
Advisory.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think it would also be good. I mean, obviously, I think that this should all go through TJ just to make sure that we're on the up and up, even if it's a policy, just to make sure that we are following things. Because, I mean, we also have to be aware of how this applies to city staff, and just to keep in mind that we do have city employees that are union. So we also want to make sure that everybody's kind of kosher with this before we would apply it, so that anybody who's within a union obviously doesn't have any objections to stuff like this, because who knows how they want to handle it. But outside of a couple things, like I said, I think maybe having TJ just glance at it to make sure that there's any additional sentences or wording that he would change to kind of make it a little more happy-dappy, then I'm fine with that. But I really like this, so I think this is a good way to move. Takes out the ambiguity, or the, what do you call it, the muddy waters as far as like how we handle that.
And the only other thing I had on that one was the legal matters. So majority of that, yes, I agree with it. But say there's a time, depending on whoever the city administrator is, we go as to the council, legal counsel, about say what if it's on the city administrator before it's litigation or something like that. Why does he have to be present? It seems like everything we talk to, he has to be present. Yeah, but if it's say it's actually on the city administrator.
Which could be the mayor.
Yeah,
And I think in most cases,
that's
if
what
it
I'm
was-
making
if it
sure.
was
That's what I'm reading.
Yeah, I think if it was involving that level of leadership, it would be the mayor. I mean, even potentially, a future, deputy administrator, that could be difficult for an administrator to be involved just because they work so closely together. I would assume at that point that the mayor would just, because they are the chief executive, they would handle it.
And that makes a lot of sense. I have not done it, but I know it's happened before, and I didn't know if there was a big issue with it. But I know there's been other city council members that asked the legal question about something, but it's not like a huge big thing. Is that an issue with this? Like, yeah, I have a quick question on something. Am I reading this right? Is that something that you look at that? Hey, I wasn't communicated. What's up with that?
I think in this case, the way that I read it is if the person is interacting with the attorney outside of the knowledge of anybody else in city staff or leadership involving anything that's currently going on, I don't read it as like you've got a question about the legality or policy or something like that, and you want their
Touch base with them.
Yeah, you just be like, oh, well, how does this policy work, or how does this ordinance read? I'm confused, or something like that. I don't see that being a big issue, but other than I would say, like, my advice would be to try to minimize that or go through the city channels first, only because every time we call them or email them, they bill us.
No, and I get that. I'm just
yeah.
saying I know it's happened in the
But
past.
if it's a question about something,
Like I said, I haven't utilized it that way because I usually get it from here. But I'm just saying that's one thing, and I didn't see a big deal because hey, you got that. I just wanted to make sure because, like you said, the way you interpret it, Dan, just like I could interpret it, that goes back to when it goes to the legal thing and there is an issue, what really the attorneys are going to read it as.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it probably just have TJ. I mean, these are all good questions, and I think if there's any ambiguity there, because again, it's just kind of a boilerplate. But I think that's a good time for TJ to just glance through it and just say, okay, this is worded kind of open-ended or a little confusing.
Well,
Let's change this a little bit.
I think we need to decide how this gets implemented, and
Right.
and that I don't think we want to. This is not meant to be a document that solves every problem that we have in the city. I think it's just to kind of set out the guidelines. The only problem is nobody knew how much communication was allowed,
Yeah.
Right.
and all we're trying to do is solve that problem.
Well, yeah. It was
And I think we can make this just policy,
oh, yeah.
or is it going
Yeah.
to be codified?
What's that?
Well, if it's a policy, that's no, it
No.
won't be codified.
No, it's
but
not
still,
an ordinance.
But
It
it's
has to
still
be
a
an
policy that you got to abide by.
Oh,
So.
yeah.
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 Mhm.
That's
Right.
what I think we're kind of aiming for this to be a policy,
Yeah.
Right.
which
All
means
right.
it doesn't quite carry the weight
Yeah.
that you would have from.
Well, and
From
being a
from
policy,
being the ordinance.
being
Yeah.
a policy that now does the mayor have the ability? Just to clarify, does the mayor have the ability to change policies at will, or does a policy change require city council? So just, yeah.
So even if it's approved by the council, the administrator can change it.
Administrator or chief
Or
executive.
Mayor.
Created it.
Right,
So it'd be a direction.
Well, a
For
little hit,
example, the policy manual that we just adopted in January was not approved.
right.
It's given to you to read over it as per your own knowledge. but
Yeah.
It's in force now.
Right,
right.
And it wasn't.
right.
And that's how I approached this, by the way. I took it to Lou and said,
Yeah.
you know, take a look at this and don't, you know, and just tell me, would you be willing to adopt something like this? That's how I'd handled it. And he looked at it and he says, yeah. And that surprised me a little bit, but he said, yeah. And so that's all I thought was going to happen, is that he was going to just make this. And I talked to him about it. And the recommendation that I had is this is something that should be part of the indoctrination, you know, process of new aldermen.
Yeah.
Or I think the young people now call it onboarding.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
indoctrination is kind of a very low.
Well, I'm-
Has a negative
Yes.
connotation.
I'm old
Yes.
school, you know.
That's I
Right.
learned something just now. I didn't know that's what it's called.
And also staff. You know, this is something that they would get as, you know, when they come on board as well.
Right.
And, you know, that, you know, you know, that you're going to get asked questions from alder persons, and this is our policy
Right.
towards that.
Yeah.
I didn't see it as a big deal. It needed to be checked by a lawyer or anything else. I just thought it was something that, just a simple policy thing. And believe me, Gemini is overcautious when it comes to those kind of things.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't, you know, and every one of these comes with a disclaimer at the end that says, now, your city may be different, and, you know, you should check with the city's code and all that sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
So I think this is safe. I mean, I don't see any,
The only reason I think that, and I agree with you, I think typically, like I said, it's common sense kind of stuff. The only reason I would that I highly suggest that TJ just look over it is because we have an enforcement category.
true.
Because we have an enforcement category, we have to make sure that this is kosher, because if there's some kind of penalty that is that's enforced here, that could, if it's not worded correctly or it's misinterpreted, you could have a claim against an employment type of issue. Only because there's enforcement. If it was just a matter of like, hey, this is just the general rules we follow, but there's no repercussions or consequences that could be held. Because if somebody can be written up or there's some kind of admonishment or something like that,
Yeah.
that could involve somebody feeling like, you know, it's a hostile work environment or
Yeah.
have an employment claim, something like that. So we just want to make sure we're covered, because I wouldn't want city staff to be put in a position where, like, somebody from the city council says something and then who knows? We want to
Okay.
make sure everybody's happy.
okay.
So to simplify this, if I could suggest, we just run through real quick, suggested changes, rules to policy.
Yep.
There were a couple other tweaks in here, and
Yeah, it was.
For
to-
interpretation, section 5,
Interpretation.
number
B2.
2,
sorry, which,
at the bottom of page 2.
V2 is the,
interpretation.
Yeah, so it would be, I would say 3 categories, or it would be like a 2 and a 3. So the 2,
10.2.
And for the mayor and.
No, it's the city administrator is responsible for interpreting and enforcing these rules with regard to staff. The mayor would be for
Enforcement for city
council. Yeah, not the administrator.
council or the clerk, because that's also an elected
True.
position.
To elected officials.
To elected
Yes,
officials.
elected
Elected
officials, yes.
And those are the only suggested changes.
Yeah, I mean, outside of just, like I said, just giving it a once over to make sure that we're good.
So, just for knowledge, the policy manual that he did send to the city attorney
Mhm.
to make sure that we weren't violating anything. And
Yep.
also because we have two groups within,
Right,
so.
right.
I don't think they'd have a problem just looking it over, but.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and one comment that I'll make, because I'm a little concerned to think that that in the future, this could just be changed by the city administrator, is I would like to see some language in here that says that this is only changed with agreement by the city council. Because I don't think the administrator should be setting guidelines
Right
for
now,
the
it
council.
does say at the bottom, these rules will be reviewed periodically and may be amended by the city council as needed.
Right.
Yeah, but I think the only way to make that a binding thing is, my understanding would be the only way you can make that a binding thing that the city council has to approve, whatever, is to codify it as an ordinance. I would say
Yeah.
that, just something
Yeah.
to ask for legal, because
Yeah.
unfortunately, guys, like, just got to kind of accept it, that the way things are set up is there's a certain amount of oversight that the mayor has a privilege to.
Right.
And we've been lucky that
Yeah.
Mike has been very democratic in those, the actions that those are, but in future
I have less
administrations.
concern about the mayor doing something than a staff person.
But those staff also
Yeah.
are at the will and pleasure of the mayor,
They do.
so the
They
mayor
do.
could fire all of them and put whoever they want in there.
Yeah, they could. I know.
Just
I know. And
just so
it's
everybody
happened
understands like how it
elsewhere.
works.
Yes.
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that it's like that
No, I get it.
our hands are tied on only certain things that we can do, and we want it to stay that way, but doesn't make me feel good either. Just so
I mean, I know two of you guys are gonna be gone in a month and a half, but I still
Might-
want to see. I still
Hey.
want to see the transparency.
if it goes sideways, you might see me out there waving
I-
a flag and
Right.
all ornery, and who knows, But I don't have but I could think about maybe a cape.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I'd like to see that, Dan.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay.
Don't
I
need
could
to
make you one. Sorry. Okay,
stay on topic, guys.
so we don't
Get
need
in
to
trouble.
vote on this, right? Or do we?
No, I think it's just
Yeah, it's
I don't think
just,
so.
yeah.
Just
direct
discussion.
staff, yeah, because
It's
it's
just going.
Make sure we
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Item number 5, discussion on the Elite Health Partnership Agreement. So did everyone have a chance to read through that? This is the $35,000 in TIF funds to help them with remodeling of an existing facility in the industrial park.
Just to clarify, this was we went through this with with my committee the other day. This was $25,000 originally, and we recommended to up, at the advice of city staff, to up this to 35. So that's why, yeah. So just so you understand, like, if you see that 35, you're like, well, wait a minute, where'd that 35 come from? That is explained later,
Okay.
because that might have been like, hey, why does that number look different?
Yeah.
That's where that conversation came from. So.
Gotcha.
in you guys' meeting, right? You said.
Yes, and Deb said it, and this is item number 6, but just it's all kind of part.
Now, was
and
that
parcel of
their request?
It was based on the, I guess, the reevaluation and the discussions between Lou city staff and
Okay.
and
And
Elite Health,
Okay.
in that the 35,000 would really be the number that they
That would-
need.
Okay.
And being that it was the $10,000 additional ask, and it also fell within what we had already talked about at the budget, that was where Deb just, we just need to know what we're going to do, but it falls between that committee and this committee to do
Yeah.
both parts of those changes.
Yep. Gotcha.
So we were fine with it, as long as this committee is also fine with it, then
Yeah.
we have no issue, but.
Okay. Any comments, questions?
Just one, and I did talk to Donovan earlier, and he said he was going to be here because I told him I was, and he's not, but I told him earlier I was going to bring it up, and he was okay with it. But just for you guys to know, I was hoping, because this part of this agreement's also with inspections, so because there's life safety stuff and anything, to be involved with the fire department as well, with that part of it.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the agreement. I mean, I said the same thing previous when this was brought up at city council, and not to speak for him, but Jay kind of said the same thing, that this is what we do TIFs for. This
Yep.
is the purpose of a TIF, so
Yeah.
I was all in favor of doing this, especially because they're going into an existing property.
Yeah.
And we would always prefer somebody inhabit an existing property than develop a brand new property and then have a dilapidated one, so.
Right? No, this is a good thing.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, I'm just making sure, because that's one thing I always forget to do, is do I need to direct staff to make sure, hey, we need the inspections to get a hold of the fire department for their part of the inspections?
I would hope that they would be standard operating procedure, but yes, I'm with you.
Right?
Okay, so there's not a vote for this, okay.
Okay.
That's my expectation, yes.
Okay. So our action is just on increasing the budget? Okay.
I didn't see anything that stood out to me that was problematic. But I'm no attorney, so.
Because the increase of budget will come from the budget amendment, so
Right.
we
Yep.
needed to understand that, because that would be.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because there's not really an amendment, because we haven't, it's in draft form.
Right.
So,
Right. Yes.
There will be an
I'm saying for this issue is.
Right.
We're just
Yeah, because, the council has not
readjusting
approved
the
the
minds
budget.
to be able to accommodate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're right, it's not an amendment where.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, any other questions on the agreement? No? Okay, moving on to item 6, discussion and action, increasing budget requests for fiscal 25-26 for TIF Fund 88.
That's what I was referring to, is updating it from the the existing 25,000 that was what we established in the budget workshop, so that Deb has the direction to make that change before it goes to the full city council for approval.
So actually, we don't need to take action on that in number 6, we'll take action on that.
Okay,
And that change for TIF 88 is within that discussion on.
Okay.
okay. So is 6, is this about paying off the bond? No. Okay, okay, so what is 6 then?
So 6 actually, from what I understand, 6 goes with 5 and kind of combining your review of the draft for the Elite Health Partnership Agreement, the full review of the entire agreement, with a note that you were originally told the agreement would be 25,000 and it was requested.
Okay,
So if anybody said, well, wait, this is 25,000 and the new agreement says 35, that's. So
okay,
The-
I don't get that from this information. There's a,
What are you looking at?
So originally, 6 was taken off, and then it was added back on. And the confusion lies in 6 really doesn't need to be there because it's in number 8.
Basically, it's redundant discussion talking about what I just said, that it came from.
I'm
okay, so, but I've got this memo here that's right after the Elite contract stuff
about Fund 88,
about the 88 budget amendment, right?
right? It's in the amalgamate,
My memo?
yes.
Yeah.
For
That's,
the current year's budget, that's the TIF payoff.
yeah, that was the payoff.
Right,
And
that's item 6, that's where we're at, item 6.
Yeah, we're 6, increasing budget requests for fiscal year 25-26 for TIF Fund 88.
That's why so I had originally requested to take that off because that's for the upcoming budget. We're going to be discussing changes that we made in February, or that we, changes from February.
Right.
In item number,
So this memo is regarding item number 9. Okay, there's the
Okay,
misunderstanding.
because I'm like trying to put
Because I'm
these
with
pieces
you,
together.
right?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, this memo doesn't match what we're talking
Yeah.
about. Okay,
Shouldn't have been in that.
so
Okay.
item number 6, you're saying we,
It's included in the discussion we just had with them.
so it was kind of like 5A.
Okay,
Let's just move on to number 7 then,
okay,
just
thank
to
you.
make it easy on
So,
ourselves.
yes, okay.
Yeah, and the
So,
memo for item number 7 was underneath this other memo we just looked at.
Okay.
right, yes, exactly. So, discussion action, number 7, discussion action on changes to mayor's special fund and reallocation of funds to new programs. A, Parks Rec 5,000, B, Muni Code 10,000. And that is this memo dated March 19th. Proposed changes to mayor's special fund and parks budget.
Once again, this doesn't have actually included in 7, it's more of an explanation for the changes you're going to see to your February 15th.
Okay,
So he just wanted to explain in his own memo why he was asking for these.
okay.
So that's basically what number 7 is.
Now, can I clarify something here? So the, okay, so in the, at the budget workshop, it was 20,000 in the mayor's special fund. And now,
He
so
wants
now
to rob
we're,
it.
yes, but now we're reducing the special fund to 5,000.
That's correct.
Right? Well, this is where I'm
That's how I
confused,
see it.
because, and then professional fees, we're moving 10,000 there, but there's 5,000 missing then.
So, I'll try to explain.
Okay.
All right, so originally, the special, originally, the mayor's special programs line item was 25,000. That was the original balance. 20,000 of that was to be transferred out, Parks and Rec, the drone show.
Okay.
Since that time, Lou is requesting that $20,000 transfer out to the parks events
Yeah.
is reduced to 5,000.
Okay.
The remainder stays in special programs, minus
Okay.
10,000, which he wants to move to professional fees for music.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
5,000,
So then there would be 10,000 in the mayor's fund.
yeah.
15.
But we're transferring 5, so then there would be 10, but there, it would be left with, after the transfer, there would be 10, is what I mean. There's 15, and then 5 of that's going to be
Yes.
transferred to
Yes,
parks.
so the mayor will have
Okay.
10,000 to work with for whatever he chooses to do.
The mayor's, yeah, special fund.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Is this what was spent last year that was kind of moved without coming as a budget amendment initially? I'm like, I think after everything happened, we made a budget amendment because it actually happened. Was the day that last year, was it the 5,000 that just was moved? And then after the event happened, it came back that we had to agree to the budget amendment? Yes. Yeah, which is the
Right.
day of
Day of
this,
the
is that
Dead,
was
the $5,000 that was,
How that worked this current year,
Yeah.
this current budget is, events committee, or not the events committee, sorry, the Parks Foundation was kind of backing off on doing the Day of the Dead because they were afraid they weren't getting the sponsorships that they needed, and they were short about $5,000.
Okay.
Because the parks budget was done by a previous superintendent, we weren't quite sure where all that money was allocated. There was some money left over in park programs. And what you voted to do was use the money from park programs to give to the Park Foundation to fund that. So there was not necessarily a budget amendment done per se in writing. It was, we'd like to reallocate these funds to give to somebody else for a program instead of using it for our.
And is that what we're doing kind of like right now, or is this actually
No, this is a little different. Last year, we also budgeted 20, I believe 20 or 30,000 for the soccer tournament,
right,
correct?
with the idea that we would bring in $30,000 of revenue and we would expend out that amount, all parks to parks.
Right.
So I think it was actually 40,000.
Okay, so we didn't end up doing a soccer tournament, so we didn't bring any revenue, but we didn't have any expenses either, so that just has kind of zeroed itself out. This year, how we've got it set up is there's gonna be 5,000 in revenue for a park event to be determined. Well, no, it's gonna be Day of the Dead, right? So 5,000 within the park fund already earmarked for Day of the Dead. Revenue coming in is this transfer out from the mayor's special program into the park. So kind of the same concept, just a little bit.
Because the money came from a different place.
Because the money came from a different place, and because last year it was done after the budget was
Right.
already set.
Correct.
This year we're doing it as part of the new budget. Does that make sense?
As we're approving in the budget, basically transferring $5,000 to the foundation, from general to parks for the
And like I
foundation.
said, it sucks that I missed the budget workshop, and after missing it, I'm like, but I had other obligations, and I'm like, man, I realize how much I actually enjoy being there because I get most of the information then.
Yeah.
But
Still
so
confusing.
is there so much? There's still money from the events, the old events the program that we are still have available.
We never solicited the revenue. The
Okay.
revenue's gonna come from ticket sales, donations, actual fees that soccer.
Sponsorship.
We
Yeah.
never got that revenue. We also never expended it, so it just.
Okay.
Revenue was in collecting.
No, I'm not talking about soccer. I'm saying what the events committee used to have. That's still in somewhere in one of the accounts. Not at all. Okay, we expended all that.
Oh, yeah, that was several
So,
years.
so
Okay.
the events committee was under parks,
Yes.
so you budgeted each year for a certain amount for events. But events generally was a zero-sum game, so they would, sponsorship and fees were set to just basically break even.
Yeah, break even. Hoping. Yeah, we at least hope to break even.
Right, right.
Yes, that was in the park. So they didn't
Okay.
do it separate.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Yeah, I'm good.
Were we at 7?
Yep.
So we don't really need action. on
7,
this time, 'cause we
okay.
didn't get action.
Okay. Thank you. Well, this does say, it says discussion action. So, do we?
Or action.
Well, no, it's slash,
It
that's
could be and or.
and or.
Yep.
So, we're saying it's or, it's not and.
Full interpretation, like
Okay.
you said. Could be anything
See?
you want it to be.
Did you go to law school, Matt?
I did take
Troublemaker.
business law in college, but
Okay, so there isn't any action to take on 7.
Nope.
But on 8, so we can move to 8, discussion and/or action to approve fiscal year 25-26 budget, recommend to city council in April.
So in this packet, and I apologize for being sent out 3 times. It was due to some of these changes that we just discussed, as well as a couple of other things that I had to move around. So I finally got the final number. It's in the packet memo for the budget, the 18,811,771. I also included in that packet all of the changes that we either discussed during the workshop or that we just discussed just now. So if you've had time to look at all those, I've tried my best to note kind of how those references cross each other. And I broke it down by fund as well. So the first page should be general, and then the other funds to follow. So however you want to hash this out works for me. Just start questions.
Because this is the changes,
These are the
right?
changes.
These are the changes,
At the top, 25-26 budget workshop changes.
right? And then this is the actual,
And that actual document, which is the final document that you saw at the workshop.
right.
Includes those.
Oh, okay, so they've been incorporated into here. Okay, gotcha. Okay, let's just go through this, the changes, page by page. Any comments, questions? under general revenue, we have the gaming license increase.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that's on here is what we already agreed to.
Right.
In the workshop, so I don't have any
Now, so let me just,
opposition to any of that.
so is the police pension, is that changed? That's because we did it in the budget for the bond,
That's
the
separate.
debt.
So originally, in the document that I had presented that day, I still
Yeah.
had police pension revenue coming into the general fund.
Yeah,
So, the general fund, and when we reallocated during the tax levy, I brought it into the police pension fund instead. So
Right.
I just had noted that day that I had to make
Right.
that change, so I wanted to make sure it was in writing so that
Yeah.
you saw it.
yep,
So, yeah, and it
Yeah.
zeroed itself out because it was $495 coming in and then
$495 going out, right, okay.
Under general fund admin expenses, about halfway down, you see special programs, and there's your
Yep.
change, professional fees to Unicode.
Okay,
Go to up at the
Gotcha.
top, you'll see, they kind of, I kind of like coordinate the highlighted colors to see where they
oh,
No, that actually helps a lot. I
That
mean, like, especially
does.
when you get the gaming license increase and the gaming to ECDV, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, because that was the gaming and to licenses increase to the ECDV. That we also discussed that.
right,
Because originally, the plan was to take, or that we had talked about, was taking that money and putting it straight into the revolving loan fund. But when we were looking at that ordinance, it was an ordinance that we were actually looking at the community development meeting, it was advised that if we do that, anything that goes into that revolving fund, we can't take out. Now, we could always add it in towards the end of the budget cycle when that's left over, but leaving it in this fund, we can,
it's more flexible.
we can touch it if we need to, because once it goes into that revolving loan fund, it's a one-way street, so.
It becomes restricted, so.
Correct.
The other thing I want to note as well is under PD expenses, this part's bottom line didn't change. However, they did request to move some things around, and that will be discussed in item number 12. But you'll see the training was increased by 11,900 and new increased by 11,900.
Oh, okay,
And
Okay.
that was just to make everything, in writing before we start for May 1.
okay,
That's if number 12
Okay.
is agreed upon. So that's
Now, I thought, and I'd have to go back through my notes, but I thought there was going to be something on this agenda about the increase in the police staffing.
there was going to be something about the spot.
Oh, okay, okay,
So the intent,
There was something.
Okay.
on the
Yeah.
original agenda did
Yeah.
have a line item.
okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yep.
so the intention is still to
Think I'm
fill that
losing.
spot, but
Correct.
we need to wait until there's an academy spot
Yes.
before we can do anything about it. Okay.
And that
Okay.
is in this upcoming budget. We did raise salary to.
right, yeah,
So that would have been this year's fiscal year, we would have been changing if they, oh,
And that's still there though, right?
Still there.
Yeah, so it's still gonna be there, it's just, they're not gonna be able to actually do anything about it until they get the spot with the academy and they can hire somebody.
if it's there, then we don't have to amend it, right? If it's
No,
already in
no,
it,
we
yeah.
already accounted for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This was a separate thing that the police had wanted on the.
Oh.
agenda for tonight. So it'll be back on there,
too much numbers.
right? Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
confusing agenda, I agree.
Well, they didn't ask for new cars, and because the overtime got cut back, they were able to create, there was more to work with within the budget, so that was the change, is they wanted another spot, so worked
The other
out.
note I wanted to make is at the top, cash on hand, 656, 547, which was the bottom line for that we're using fund balance. Health insurance came in less than we expected.
right, right,
Estimate.
been
So it
estimating
came in- actually,
15,
it came in just under 10%, so we left the 10% number in there.
yep,
And I had given you two scenarios of what that cash on hand
Right.
might look like, and it was the lesser of the two.
Okay.
So that's a good thing.
Yep.
And also on page 3, sewer water fund, we were discussing how much we would transfer in from capital improvement to balance that budget, and that ended up being 99.4.
Okay.
And that was within range I could give you for what we would have in that capital improvement fund
Right.
as a reserve to be able to do that.
Yep.
And then page 4 is the general events, the 20,000 to the 5,000, $1,000 difference.
Okay, sure.
So, and actually, that incentive to ECV,
Okay.
so I'll make sure
Okay. Because what's incentive to
that was from the
EDCV?
change when I did it.
Oh, okay.
I will write that for
Okay.
the April council meeting.
Okay.
Page 2 has the TIF, the adjusted TIF amount to the
Right.
35,000.
Page 2 has the adjusted tip amount, and page 6 also has the adjusted amount
Okay.
Yep.
to increase it from 25 to 35.
Yep.
And those are the main changes that fell either outside of what we talked about on February 15th, or the numbers are finalized because they were a bit vague that day.
Okay.
Does, you probably already answered this, and the 30,000 we got from the balloon levy, is that in here?
No, I did revenue, estimates.
You're gonna leave it that way, or, I mean, it's 30, it's not a,
It's not, and, given we always, estimate our revenue a little bit lower than
yeah,
what we levy. We
Yeah.
pay their property tax, we have a couple of really big properties in town, and we decide
Right.
high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mayor, I was thinking that there was such a blow up about that, and the fact that what we ended up increasing our
Yeah.
revenue was 30,000, that it might be worth a We Are Harvard post, that just a recap of where that actually ended for.
Fair enough, so it can say, here was all the fear mongering, here's actually what happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And not as I told you so, but just.
No,
as-
and I understand it, but essentially, this is what was proposed, here's the balloon, here's what the actual amount, after it was all said and done, it increased
I
30K.
would actually suggest not.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Everybody
Well,
needs
I
to
think-
calculate their
I think-
taxes.
If I make, assuming I'm gonna make such a post, you and I will confirm on all the numbers to make sure it's all accurate before we do so.
It might also be prudent to post it after
Well, we
the
had numbers
adoption of
before,
this
so we could
budget,
just update the numbers and what it
just
actually.
because of the timing.
And I think that's important too, because if we.
Because
get
I
the
think
growth
Pandora's
this year
box
that
doesn't
we're
need
going
to be
get,
kicked
we're gonna be
in the
doing
next
that.
couple of weeks.
And we had this
Nope.
discussion that there's, I had done a lot of reading before this last balloon levy, just to kind of prepare and see what other communities have, had to do to get the correct. That they don't have any questions about.
Mm.
Just
Yeah.
how it works and something.
Well, that's what this would
Yeah.
be, is an attempt to kind of let,
Right.
so people.
Right, to help them understand,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the big numbers aren't
Also
as
because they had all
scary
that
as they
growth and they
look,
actually
right?
reduced their property tax.
So based on our final, was assessed value, we got 3.4%. It's just, if we had not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that compounds, so that's why
And it
that,
compounds, right?
Yeah.
That's the real issue.
That's the real
Yeah.
issue, is that,
Over
like we were
time,
talking
it just
about with
compounds.
Haderlein's,
Yeah.
30 grand is 30 grand.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
sound like a lot when you have a really big budget like this, but
It adds up,
yes.
absolutely.
So any questions on the changes?
Nope,
No.
they all make sense. They're all good with me.
Action on this item to send this to city council. We'll have a budget.
Now, I do have a few questions just in reviewing the budget on clarification. If that's okay. So for instance, with like the Rush Creek bike path, I am on the third page. It's under administration towards engineering fees, towards the bottom of the page.
Okay.
So, and Matt brought this to my attention, the $50,000, isn't that something that we're supposed to be reimbursed?
No, that would be our share. So based on.
Oh, so the county's not covering the whole thing?
No, the county's not covering the whole thing.
Okay,
We have to do a match. And,
Okay.
Based on the last conversation that the administrator had with the county, $50,000 would be our engineering share. There was a.
okay,
The reason I think this is coming to discussion is because during the workshop, Alderman Schulz, was questioning, should all this 50 go into engineering or should some of it go into construction?
right,
That was clarified, no, this is going to be our share of the engineering.
engineering. But is there going to be additional funds that we're going to have to come up with for the construction?
That I do not.
Okay,
I'm going to speculate that we have to have some
okay.
contribution to construction.
I thought this was a county-funded grant already.
It's a match.
It was like I forget what.
Even so, if
didn't
they
say it was like
took
a
it on, we
90-10.
were still gonna have to fund it.
It's a portion of it. I believe that the percentage
The-
is
the-
not been agreed upon yet, though.
Yes.
I don't remember that being initially when we were told that they're doing this.
I agree with you.
It's always been a match, grant, so far as I know.
But it was through the county though, and it's a county
If
road,
the county was gonna do it.
and it's a county
required
road
match.
though.
I'm sorry?
It's a county road and they were gonna put it in. So why would we match if they were gonna do it?
They've always, we're gonna require a match. Where we negotiated with them is by us taking on the project, the match got significantly reduced.
Yeah, we were gonna manage the project. They didn't have anybody to manage the
No,
project.
I got that,
But I
Dan.
think-
I
I-
understood that
I
part.
think-
The program was never 100% grant. It was never 100%.
I guess we were told wrong because Charlie even piped up and I could tell we
Yeah.
were told this was going to be, the only reason why we started doing it because they didn't have personnel, so we were going to manage it to
Right.
get it
And
done.
that
But it was
was gonna
supposed
be
to
our-
be a granted thing that they had it. And it seemed like 100% funded for this.
I think I remember. I think
My understanding is it was never 100% funded. It was funded in that there was going to be a city portion match. I think at the original it was going to be 20%. And we were trying to state, well, we're going to do the work, we're going to manage it. Can we reduce the match? So I believe that was the negotiation.
yeah.
What is,
I
I'd like
wasn't-
to
I
know
wasn't-
what that is,
Yeah.
because $50,000, if it's, you
Just
know,
look at
if
what the
it's
construction
10%,
thing
it's
for
a,
the
it's a
bike path
$500,000
is now for-
engineering
up at the
bill, which
library.
is huge.
so it's probably increased because this grant's been here, what, 4 or 5 years, I think it is?
I don't know, I know it's been a while.
Yeah,
Matt,
because
but I
when
don't
I've
know
been
how
on
long.
city council, Dave even mentioned it was there, and we were waiting for them to do it.
I think.
All I can say is we can get you that information.
Yeah.
You've
I mean, I
got
do-
time to review it before it's finalized.
I do remember Lou saying that he was in negotiation with the county on that, and that the goal was to try to get that number as close to 100 as possible.
That was
But I think he
agreed.
said it was somewhere in the neighbor. He said he was thinking it was probably going to end somewhere in the neighborhood of like a 90-10.
Correct.
But that they were still going.
Yeah, I
back
guess
and
that's
forth
not
on
what
that.
I understood, because it sounded like we might have some of the money at the beginning, but get reimbursed. From when this first started.
The only thing that I wasn't aware of is that the engineering was separate from the construction, but I don't have a problem with the engineering portion of it if we're gonna be
Is that
getting a $500,000
really
plus
standard
size project.
for the engineering? I mean, if it's 90-10, then that means the total engineering ticket is $500,000. And that's before you even go into.
No, that'd be 90-10 of the whole,
construct.
no, I thought it was 90, my understanding was 90-10 of like the whole thing, including all engineering. I wouldn't think that was
Right,
90-10 of
but,
just the
but
engineering.
if we're doing 50,000 and we were told that is just engineering, that is our share of engineering.
I don't know what the split on the
Yeah.
engineering is. That could be, that could be.
We'll get
anything.
to
Yeah,
the-
Okay,
yeah, we'll have to
okay,
get the
good.
information on that. But 50,000 as a number sounds right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just, like some clarification, right? Yeah, yeah, right. Thank you, thank you.
Well, and Lou tends to err on the side of caution, and the number's usually a little higher than maybe what he thinks it's going to be, just to cover it, so he doesn't have to come back and say, we thought it was going to be 20, and now it's 50.
Yeah.
So,
So the other question I had was, so in trying to understand the grant writing service, or should we do that? We can do that under 10, right?
Yeah, that was actually reduced. That was, number
Right.
10, he's gonna ask for, I believe, on that.
Right.
And then, the grant writing was reduced, he was able to get it, 10,000 less, originally.
5,000 less. Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I have some questions. I forgot that was on the agenda, so I have a couple questions about that. And then, wait, let's see. Okay. Yeah, just, that's the only question I had. That's not on one of the upcoming items on the agenda. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the changes? Budget with the changes to send to council.
I'll motion to approve the budget as presented with the changes, recommending it to city council for approval in the amount of $18,811,771.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Make Charlie repeat the whole second.
Yeah,
My
I'm kidding,
comment's
I'm
going to
kidding.
be, I'm going to be voting no on it now because of the Rush Creek bike path thing. I thought this was a county 100% funded thing from when we've been talking about this for years. I thought we were going to up some of the money and then they were going to reimburse us, but now I see we actually have to do a share because we have no say in what they do with the airport road. They can do anything else. It's part of their easement. I figured it'd be county.
thank you. All in favor? Oh, roll call vote. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Alderman Gorman,
Aye.
Alderman Perkins,
No.
Alderman Carncross,
Yes.
and I'm a yes vote. 3-1. Thank you. Okay. Brings us to item number 9, which is discussion action to approve budget amendment for the payoff of bond issue 4879.
I'll make a motion that we approve the bond payment issue 4879.
We actually have to approve the budget amendment in order to pay off the bond.
Okay.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment for the payoff of the bond issue 4879. And that'd be the TIF, correct? Yeah, I'm just making sure people listening.
And to clarify, this was, the reason that we are doing this is because paying it off early saves
Increase interest.
the the remainder of the interest by how much was it that we were saving?
It's like paying off a mortgage or a car
Like
loan.
14K.
It was like 14,000. Okay. Just so people understand why we're budgeting.
And this is this current fiscal year we're paying
Yeah.
off. So people, so people understand we have this money in this current fiscal year to do it.
The budget amendment is just a formality to make sure that
Right.
So.
And what is the total payout amount?
The total payout will be on the second, on the debt service notice from Alderman.
Okay, so that's, okay. And then we're done with that one. Wow.
Nice work,
Nice.
Deb, on checking on that to make sure we could pay it off early and seeing that we could have some savings there, because 14,000 is quite a bit of money.
That was Alderman Schultz's request, actually,
Yeah.
and then reviewing that, we also
Yeah.
learned that there's another.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll be able to save a little bit on that, too.
Yeah, it's great.
So for those going to be on the council for the budget year going 26-27, plan for the payoff early and save some money.
Just a side note to let you know, there was a time in 2016-17 when we weren't sure that we had enough funding to pay this debt that was
Yeah.
to service the debt. So the amount of investment that has happened in the industrial park has greatly righted the ship on this TIF. So,
Yeah.
and with expectation of additional investment in the future,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Badger and Pet Diner are the big ones.
Petdine and Badger Fulfillment.
Yep.
But then you also.
You have the smaller ones too, but yes. But for a while that wasn't seen there.
We definitely, for that TIF to have been as healthy as it is today is very because of Petdine and Badger Fulfillment.
So we need to vote
This
on
is money,
this?
so
Well-
roll call.
a roll call?
All right.
Okay. Alderman Carncross?
Yes.
Alderman Gorman?
Yes.
Alderman Perkins?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay. Okay, and item number 10, discussion action on contract with administrative consulting specialists for grant writing services.
Are we required to take action on this? Or is it just a discussion on a contract? So the way I read this would be like the other ones where we just discuss. We don't actually take action on this because the contract would be entered in by the mayor.
Because this is, and this is in the next budget year.
And you
right?
guys did this for the budget workshop, correct?
Originally, yes, we discussed this. Lou brought this
The
up.
money wise in that
Yeah,
part.
the money wise.
And then, you know it's reduced, but
Yeah.
we haven't approved yet.
So-
Mayor, you said you were familiar with this, is he asking for a contract?
I
I think
he's asking for us to approve a contract.
I
with
think what
them,
it needs to
ACS.
happen is we're asking for you to recommend the city council
Okay, so we do need to
Moving
take
forward
action
with
on this one. Okay, just want to clarify.
so that we can get them on board and then start finding us money.
Well, and like Matt, when we talked about this in the budget workshop, because we did discuss a little bit with Lou, like what this accounted, like what this would be.
Mhm.
And one of the things that he pointed out is going through a service like this speeds up the process of being able to not only apply to more grants, but speed up the process to apply to grants. So rather than it go take us a month, 2 months, 3 months to go through the process, they can do it in a couple of weeks because they already have everything lined up and they already know what paperwork needs to be filed and to who and when, and so they can knock it out.
And they can use AI.
Basically,
Yeah.
basically you're just paying for it so the city staff doesn't have to do it and we don't have to hire a specific, because we originally talked about hiring as somebody to be on staff to do it, like part-time. This would just get rid of all of that liability and everything. Just send it off, they do it.
So a question, so does this, because I know this last year and prior, we've hired Christopher Burke Engineering to prepare grants for us, like OSLAD.
Yes, specific grants, yes, like
Yes.
OSLAD
Yeah,
and
Lead lines,
lead lines,
Yeah.
and then,
well, 9, generator.
yes.
so
So infrastructure kind of.
would
related.
would we still be paying them to do those grants?
Yeah, I believe these are for grants outside of our civil engineering requirements.
Okay.
Well, for example, one of the ones that I think this is, Lou was talking about, because when we brought up the revolving loan fund, there's a grant that Lou wants to apply for that, was it like $1 million? I think it was, the amount was like $1 million for the downtown.
Or for funding the program.
Yeah, funding the program, because we would add that to, as, that's a grant that he wanted to apply for, that we got, it would add to that revolving loan fund to help build it up, but this group could do it, like, he hasn't lined up for this group to be able to do it right away, should we give them the approval, and it could apply almost immediately.
And that's
That
the
was my understanding.
DCEO grant that's referenced on here? Revolving loan grant?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
so that's something that he brought up, that he would be able to do, he would be able to have them take care of right away.
Okay.
I see it kind of as a contractor, subcontractor.
Yeah.
Type of thing, because, you know, Gary doesn't actually go out and find.
No.
Grants, but he provides professional services that are required to make the grant happen. And in other words, this outfit could go and find a grant that may require us to hire him to fulfill part of the process.
If it required specific engineering, yes,
Yeah.
that would be the case.
Yeah.
So I see it as two separate
Okay.
things. And I know that the part about finding grants is kind of an art.
And I think that's the biggest challenge is finding them. It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
Well,
It's finding
and-
them,
as well as
writing them,
writing them.
managing them.
So
Yes.
where in here does it actually say that they're finding grants for us? In this contract?
We're stating that or simplifying it, but, there's a process to making it so that your grant is looked at too, that,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Yeah.
real art to
Yeah.
writing grants. But my sense was that the city would have to say, here's a grant, we want to go for this, because we want to make sure that these are grants that are advancing our priorities, and not just, oh, here's a grant we could get for you to do this thing that maybe you don't want to do or don't need to
nothing
do.
would stop that process.
What's
I
that?
think we would provide them with the direction and
Yeah.
that they would
Yeah.
do. And if you look on the actual contract description,
Yeah,
second sentence, this includes unlimited grant writing, research, and maintenance.
Okay.
So it might fall
Yeah.
under research. I can
Okay.
ask if he can
Okay.
clarify that.
yeah,
That's kind of how I interpret it, as more of just like, the city council says we want to do something, or
Yeah.
Lou says, hey,
Hey, here's
The
a
park
grant for this
project,
project.
right,
yeah,
right.
city path or whatever.
Is there any,
sidewalks,
are there any
exactly, are
opportunities
there any
out there?
grants that we can
Okay.
apply for? They look
Yeah.
it up, see what the terms are, and they're like, oh yeah, there's 4 or 5 of them. Do you want us to apply for? Yeah, cool, let's just go.
Okay,
Yeah, things
So-
that are uniform across the state, like the lead line program, John Duddle's with Christopher Burke, that's exclusively what he works on. So he
Right.
has, he's like, oh, I'll take care of getting the funding, I'll take care of doing this. So that's just kind of something
Yeah.
we do with those kinds of projects that all communities are facing. So this would be,
Yeah.
this contract would be more catered to our specific
gotcha,
extra things we want to do
gotcha,
based on our own community.
okay.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really wise way to do it, as opposed to us trying to do this in-house. I mean, I know it seems like lately everything we do would need to be like outsourced or subcontracted, but I mean, that's kind of that's the
As long
nature
as you
of the
get
world.
one grant off of this, it pays for it.
Yeah, we do the 1 million and leave it. We literally, covered the cost in dividends. So yeah, I agree. That's exactly what. But when Lou said that we could apply for $1 million to go right into the revolving loan fund to fund that, it was like, a leprechaun just popped out of the floor. It's like, oh wow, like that. We're struggling to try to put $100,000 in there and scrape that money together from every corner of the budget, and here we have a grant that we could just dump right into it. And he said we could apply for it repeatedly. I forget which city it was. Rochelle has applied for it several times and been approved several times, and I want to say they have like $5 or $10 million, something like that, in some fund.
$6 million.
Yeah, they've.
Oh.
Yeah.
If that's the case, yeah, I'd even be more happy with that loan
Yeah.
than for the small
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's not our putting the tax dollar money into it. Yeah. as much,
exactly.
yeah.
This is
It's coming from
Fine,
taxes,
yeah.
just not city property.
Yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
it's-
that's why.
And I did ask,
Exactly.
this is a state-funded grant.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be something.
It's
that
not something
it's
from
not-
federal money.
It's not a
Yeah.
federally funded grant that probably won't be funded. So they can apply, and so when he said that, it was like, okay, well, this program would already pay for itself with one
Right.
award.
So do we have a motion to approve advancing this contract to the council?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Matt.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're sending this contract on. Okay. Item
Love
number.
free money.
What's that?
I said I love free money.
Item number 11, this is take action on a donation of property along the west side of Shadow Creek. So there's a map that's included with this.
So here, I can pull this.
Can you pull that up? And I think that we're just talking about this section
Correct,
here,
yes.
okay?
The map that's shown is proposed walkways or trails that could be utilized in conjunction with this piece of property. So
Right.
the property we're talking about is this thin strip right here. Sorry, I have to back out a little bit so you can see it.
Yep.
That piece of land right there. And so the idea on the map that you have is, we could add trails that eventually would run on the, between our lagoon and this property, because we do own this property here. We could get a pathway to downtown from this neighborhood.
Now, one thing that I'll point out that Sean Kingzett and I noticed when we walked
Oh, up
back
here?
there, to go up there, because we started in the little park at the north end of Shadow Creek.
Oh.
Yeah, that one. Are those tennis courts?
Yep, right
Yeah.
here.
So we started in that park. So if you zoom out a little bit, you'll see actually at the end of that street, Casey Lane, there, that there is a very well-established path that goes across that property there. It's like almost through the middle of it. And
Through this property here?
no,
Through this property?
through that property there,
And going in which direction?
north, and to cross Brink Street.
Yeah, I see it. All
Oh,
right.
so
Yeah. And then to go downtown.
I see.
Yeah. And it has been used by residents
For years.
there for years, and
Sure.
probably from your subdivision too, that if their kids are cutting through,
I hope my kids aren't doing that.
not your kids, other people's kids, Matt.
No, I'd assume that they're either
Yeah.
coming home from school or doing
Right.
whatever and going.
Right. And they go through the streets in Shadow Creek.
That was there even
and
when I
then-
was a kid.
Yeah, and then cut through and then go up Air. Yeah.
That's all wooded though.
What's wooded?
That's all trees.
Well,
Or is it more
it's
like
pretty
it's-
sparse.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
brush and
Yeah.
weeds and
Yeah.
this used to be
It's a pasture.
racetrack.
Yeah.
Yep, a racetrack.
So-
You can kind of still see the remnants of the,
I think, and that's part of the path still,
Yeah.
part of the old racetrack.
But
maybe you'll see that path a little bit better with a different
yeah,
year.
Go back, many years. There it is.
oh yeah, you can see the racetrack.
What year is that
Hey,
one?
but that was a circle.
Oval.
Yeah, oval there.
You can be able. Yeah, because that path is part of the old racetrack.
There you go.
Oh, there it
Look
is.
at that. Wow.
Amazing.
We should build another racetrack.
By 1980, I think it was now, in 1980, this photograph, I think it was just like a cart
Yeah,
path for like kart racing.
I think so at that time, yeah.
For horse, no, I don't think it was go-karts. I think it was horse.
Oh,
Yeah, the
trotters.
Trotters,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really? Interesting.
Because it was one, I mean, it was only a farm, but off of Raymer Road right there by Oak Grove, that guy
Yeah.
always had one like that. And he used to
Really?
ride his cart with the horse every time.
Okay. Interesting. A sulky? Do they call it a sulky?
So this is 2005. You can see
Yeah,
they've already started building houses in there.
right.
Most
Yeah,
of them
it's
are already
mostly
built, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because that was one of the, besides yours and Park Point, I think that was the third subdivision.
But that
So
makes
that was
sense.
my
I could see
only,
it,
that
yeah.
was my only, my point was
Eventually,
that,
this would be developed, right? But
right,
we don't own this.
right. But I
um,
think in terms of, there's already, I mean, this is just one of the concepts with paths, and creating and establishing paths, is if there's one that's already established, that's,
But that's private property, though.
oh, it is. But if there's a way to work with that,
Well, I don't think we have to worry about it, though.
yeah.
I mean, the concept here is just it's available.
Yeah.
For just the registration fee.
right,
And it's, for if the city has it, then they'll have some control over what happens to it.
Yeah.
And it's too
ju-
thin to
just
sell it for
that's
a
enough
house.
For me, just, if they do it.
And what, the recording fee is what? Not even $100?
I have no idea.
Well, and let's say we were to build,
Correct,
let's say
yeah,
we were to
it's
build a
less
path
than-
there. Let's say we were to
yeah.
build a paved path. The proposed, walking path that we're talking about going from, across, down Airport Road, that would connect to this, correct?
Well,
In theory.
so you're talking about the county project.
The
that
Rush
we're
Creek
working
one,
on.
yeah.
Rush Creek.
I
Yeah.
believe it's supposed to end here,
Okay.
but we are, if council approves to get this, we're going to seek to have it end here so
Yeah,
that it
that's what I
makes
was-
it a natural termination to be able to cross here and use the path.
Now, I know today, so
Or maybe it goes like, I don't know, just,
Say that the idea would be.
The idea
in
is to
future,
connect
we
those
could
two
connect them and
pathways
have
at some
one big
point in the future.
continuous path.
I mean, if we were able, and we would have this new grant writer would have to do a grant, because luckily I found out today it's gotten cut down, but during the parks meeting, that path up by the library doubled from what we got. Now it's less now because we cut down, we're not utilizing the whole path length now. We have to cut out some of that, but it was 120, we had 120K, right, Mayor, we got for that grant?
125.
Yeah.
And then, but unfortunately, engineers think the cost is gonna be construction 240, I think it was
Right.
when I heard it. Well, okay,
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
I was even
More
lowballing
than,
it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, and this is kind of, I mean, not as much, the only good thing about this one, it's not as hilly.
Yeah,
So I think that's part of the construction part, but still, you gotta remember, it's gonna be at least 120K.
oh, no, yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
thinking cost, like, long-term, just obviously, we want to take the property, and we want to keep it with the intention of putting a walking path, because it's really all you can really do with it. I just wanted to just make sure we clarify that, eventually to connect it with this path that we're talking about doing from Rush Creek, because
That's the intention.
The intention is to have it
Yeah.
connected.
At whatever
also
point
be-
that's built, we would
Yeah.
try and make those two connect.
Because I also want to make sure that, going through this process, we're talking years down the road, but just so that also, constituents, people that live in this area understand, because as discussed in various other mediums, people don't see the big picture of what all these paths and everything are meant to connect to. So if the city's building one path in one area, it doesn't make any sense. It's the bridge to nowhere. But they don't know that there's other
Just like
plans to build.
The
it.
county one out on, by Dean's. Eventually,
Right.
they want to.
That just dead ends.
But because they
Yeah.
eventually wanted to go further, but unfortunately they haven't been able to. But it was eventually supposed to go to the one that it was actually supposed to go to the county line eventually.
Yeah, to connect up with the Boone County
Yeah,
bike trail, yeah.
Well, because down in DuPage, where I grew up, we have the bike path that goes all the way from the city of Chicago, all the way through DuPage, and I think you can actually ride it all the way out to like DeKalb or Rockford. I think there's a way to go down that path. So the idea was all these communities over the years planned to build this path through the various counties, and it all linked up, and now you've got one I mean, it's kind of convoluted, but it all connects, and you can literally like go down to the city of Chicago, ride your bike or walk out to Rockford if you really want to, so they're all connected. I mean, I used to ride when I was a kid. So this is us doing this is actually, even though we're doing it in bits and pieces, it makes a lot of sense to do this because then you've got segments of these paths that all connect.
Well, but I gotta say, sorry, Matt.
No, it's
that,
okay.
That this location for this path, this strip of land, goes right behind people's houses, and that is always controversial. And since we're already selling off 2 home sites there on one of the parks in Shadow Creek, I would strongly like to see us actually do a community meeting with them and not just assume that they're going to hear the discussions at a council meeting, because that it's
Wait a minute. For the
those are small lots.
No, if we put a path in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I know, but the only reason to acquire that land is to have a path on it.
You only got 45
Otherwise, there's
seconds.
no reason for us to have
I
it.
just said the opposite of that. We can use it for any, I don't know what you can use it for, but you can, at least if we own it, we have some say in what happens to it.
It's what? How wide is it? 30
20
feet? 20 feet?
So
Yeah.
if somebody comes up with something, I don't know what, maybe it ends up being
I mean,
a
I'm-
DMZ, between 2 neighborhoods.
Are we gonna, the only, I guess that with that,
Man, you got some. It's like society's gonna fall apart, man.
I guess going off of Lisa's thing,
Start building your bunker today.
are we supposed to, are we gonna have to mow it and everything? Or is it,
Right now,
Yeah.
it is brush.
yeah,
It is, there's nothing to do with it right now.
okay.
Well, we wouldn't. Yeah, so we would need to.
Right
if
now, we
cleared it,
don't
would
have
not.
to mow it.
I would say no. We just leave it.
I'd say a lot of the neighbors are already mowing it since they're squatting on it.
I like that word.
Yeah, some
Has
of
it
them
been enough years where they
yeah,
got the
put-
eminent
I-
domain?
Yeah,
I-
there's a
I
bunch
do-
of them that are basically,
well, and something that
encroach. That's the word I'm
yes,
looking for.
but,
What's that?
oh yeah,
Oh yeah, there's a couple sheds.
there's
a fire pit.
gardens and, yeah.
So they're encroaching on the property.
But this
yeah.
is something that I saw happen in Woodstock with public land, where it was similar to this, where there was public land, city wasn't doing anything with it, it was just there, and people had encroached. And the city wanted to develop the land, wanted to sell it to a developer. And of course, people were all upset about it. And so one of the neighbors approached the mayor and the city manager with the idea of the city selling off, I can't remember what the depth was, 50 feet or something of the property that was in back of all these people's houses, selling it to them, because it was the area that was going to then include where all the encroachment was, and then turn the rest of it into a public park. And so it took a 35-acre site to a 30-acre site, and the city accomplished what they wanted, which was to take this land and get some money for it. And so they got money for it, because actually selling off those small pieces was more money than they would have gotten from selling the whole thing to a developer. So I'm just throwing that out there, that at some point that may be
And I guess if, with accepting this
Opportunity.
donation and getting this with them, there's no legal thing that they've sat there for so many years, squatter rights, and actually
That's not a thing.
anymore.
that is a thing. That's absolutely a thing. Adverse possession after 20 years. They'd
Because
have
we-
to take us to
since we
court,
had the
though.
par-
Taking us to court.
Yeah.
We're currently not the owners. We're gonna buy the property.
So then,
Right.
Owners.
so then
But
it's new, right? Because.
But if they've been doing it for 20 years and they can prove that they've done it for 20 years, it doesn't start over again with a new owner.
No, but I understand that.
Yeah. But they would have to go
They
to
would
court.
have to, they would have to.
Yeah.
Legally, yes.
They'd have to go to
sue
court.
for it.
And
Yes.
they wouldn't hit 20 years because the construction there was less than 20 years ago. Most
Was
of
it?
It was around
It was
2000,
close
I
to-
think it is.
No, it
Probably.
was,
It's
that
probably-
was in
it's probably
before I
close.
moved here. Yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
2005,
yeah.
So they'd have to demonstrate encroachment.
they
which
would.
they would have a hard time
Let's see
doing.
if there's any sheds right now on those.
Nope.
Oh,
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 one.
yeah,
You got
okay.
one. You got one.
two.
They didn't waste any time.
They knew it was going up.
Oh, that's funny.
yeah, right now it's mostly trees and brush, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back then, yeah.
I mean, I understand your concern when people don't want stuff behind their house, but I mean, the way that that property is all laid out, the way that that field is next to it, eventually that field's gonna be developed into housing. So you're gonna have two subdivisions side by side, and that path is gonna be ideal to go around.
Well, there's an
between them.
expectation for that because you have a stub right here.
Yeah, so I mean, it would make, for future development,
Yeah.
putting a path in there would be ideal, just because then
Because
you
if you have
it-
another development here, now you have two paths, two developments that could use a single path.
Correct.
But,
So that, to me, is the future development. Now, as far as going up and down the back of people's properties, there's expressways behind people's properties all
Oh,
over
yeah.
the place. So, I mean, it kind of is what it is, and when you buy a property that butts up to something else that's not there,
Kinda
you
reminds me
understand
of,
that whatever is developed there is whatever's
Kind
developed.
of reminds me of the,
Maybe we could
pathway
turn
in
it
this
into a
neighborhood.
runway.
It's right.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Which was fortunately put in before the homes were built. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just
Yeah.
bringing that up.
Yep, well, at that time,
Yeah.
they can certainly have a public hearing about it.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that.
Okay,
So do we need an action for that, to take the donation?
You need to make a recommendation to city council.
All right, I'll motion to approve recommendation of city council to accept the donation of the property along the west side of Shadow Creek to the city of Harvard.
Second.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's approved. Item number 12. Discussion action on McHenry County Law Enforcement Regional Training Center Agreement.
This is the flip-flop on the budget change. Remember Deb just mentioned that there was the change from the equipment to the training?
Right,
That was what this
That's
was?
for the
Yes, that's
funding for
this. yeah. And can I just say that that is an awesome facility? I've been there, and have you been there,
No.
Matt? No. Oh, it is a really nice facility.
I don't think they allow firefighters there.
Oh, they're right, there's a big sign.
The key for this particular issue is we have been doing a lot of the training in-house.
Yeah.
This gives us the opportunity to utilize, they have instructors that's what they do every day. And so it really takes, because it's collateral duty for our officers, so it allows us really, now it makes it really easy. Hey, you need this training, go schedule it, go.
Yeah.
And we don't have to worry about that logistical issues
Right.
in-house.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan I mean, we've always been very progressive on training for our officers, providing more than enough funding to make sure they can get the best training possible. I think that has always been reflected in the quality of officers and the police department that we've got and their responses, and we've also been big advocates for the communal resources that the police departments share within the county. So I think that taking advantage of any kind of regional program, training center, or subsidized policing or training, any of that, I think is always a benefit for us, so.
And there's some advantage of training with other departments at the
Right.
same time
Yep.
because you get,
Absolutely.
different perspectives from different communities. So there's a
Absolutely.
lot of advantages of doing this.
Yeah,
And the other good thing is with this is night training too. There's classes at night for the people that work night.
Yeah, that's something that kind of gets forgotten a lot of times is we've obviously got multiple shift officers, so they don't always have it's not always convenient for them, and this would help them with their, their personal lives and their work lives and stuff, so I think that adapting to their work schedule is also great, so I'm all for it. Do we have to make a motion for this?
You need to
Yes.
recommend this council.
Okay.
okay.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Oh, I never got to read it. Okay.
And
What is your motion, sir?
Well, no, it's right here.
at the bottom,
But you-
A motion to approve, I move to approve the recommendation to the city council to approve a contract with McHenry County Law Enforcement Regional Training Center to run from 2025 to the end of 2026 for $5,100 and for the remainder of 2025 and $6,800 for all of 2026.
okay, and then Matt, you're second.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Deb, does this, and this was reflected in the budget?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Got that approved. Item number 13, declare surplus property, 3 body-worn cameras.
I'll motion to approve the declaration of surplus property of body-worn cameras in the quantity of 3
For scrap.
for scrap or whatever.
Yep.
you do
Second.
them.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
No, Charlie.
Charlie. Item number 14 is strategic vision, and
I don't have
I
any.
don't have any.
Say we have the cow tomorrow, so
Yeah,
we can
right.
focus on that tomorrow.
I
Yeah.
think we're pretty good in all the committees right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of skipped over it in ours a little bit too,
Yeah.
just because we're going to already discuss it. So
and I know the wage study is taking place, and I know that was one we had talked about, so.
Yeah.
It's happening.
we'll say that I'm
Yeah.
excited for it tomorrow because both sides of it we've knocked down a bunch of different bullet points in a very quick amount
Yeah.
of time. So
Yeah.
it'd be fun to see the progress report.
Absolutely. Okay, so strategic vision, done. New business? Anything to bring up there?
I got a couple of things. Sorry, Charlie, I know. The first thing,
It's already halfway out the door.
it's coming off of, it could also go on and use infrastructure, but with admin and ordinance. I did find something that we've had issues with TechCom, with the ordinance in chapter 6, point 18, section A2C talks about that. That's good reference for you, Charlie, as well. And then penalties was chapter 6.18, section V. And it talks about interference with our utilities and any other utilities that are permitted in the right of way. So that's that's the thing for city staff to look into. So we do have that for issues that we've had. I know that's more infrastructure, but this is also, but it's ordinance things.
That's the section of code that I insisted on being in the contract, or in the permit, remember? Because it has all that long list of things.
Yeah,
And, in other words, what the companies are responsible for and so on
Yeah.
is in there. It's, it's really spelled out.
Okay.
And so they should be referencing it. Also, Rob has been taking a lead on a lot of this, but the actual enforcement person is Donovan. Is it, and it's in the
In that, actually, in this
Okay.
chapter, right?
yeah. I mean, he's the one who should be. If there's any action that needs to be taken or so on, he's the actual staff person who, in that, in our ordinance says that he should be enforcing it. So that's just stuff that people have been calling me about the hits and so on. And
Yeah.
they said, there's nothing in our code about this. And I said, yeah, there is a lot. And so I looked it up and sent it to some people, and
Okay.
it caused me to read it again too.
Good.
Yeah, I read it last night. I found it last night because I was looking it up.
And it really is spelled out about who's liable for what and what they need to do.
Okay.
And the right, what we can charge
Up to 750 per day.
So
Okay.
It's all in there.
Okay.
And that section
Okay.
I said initially,
Yeah.
and that's only one subtitle, then that penalty is saying if you do not adhere by these rules,
Yeah.
you can be fined up to 750 per day. Up to
Okay.
doesn't mean that's going to be
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at least we have that ability. So that's good.
Well, and the city is entering into into the contract with Surf for service, and I mean
Right.
that's something that can be negotiated back out of that contract as well. So if there's, I mean, I'm sure that there's ways that they can discuss that to figure out either the fines, fees, or whatever.
So all can hear.
So it's in the contract.
We've got
Right.
the city's entering into a contract with Surf for service. I'm sure that they're between Donovan and Lou and the mayor, they can discuss what some of these costs would be and figure out,
Well, yeah, but
a
this is
way
all
to
part
come-
of the install. Well, it's ongoing. You're right.
correct,
guys.
but they're a subcontractor, so ultimately,
Yeah.
you wouldn't directly go to them and be like, this is, they're subcontract, and it would all go through the COIs of who's in charge of what.
Well, Surf is responsible for its some subcontract.
Right.
Correct, but
Exactly.
each subcontractor is it depends on how everything's set up. As usually subcontractors have their own
In our
insurance.
ordinance, it says Surf is.
Correct. We would go through Surf, and then Surf would go through them.
Yeah.
Well, we would, our contract is
We
with
would hold
Surf.
Surf
Yes.
Accountable.
And then they figure it out with them.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how they handle their subcontractors is up to them.
Correct. So,
But our enforcement is with Surf.
Yeah.
And the requirements of adhering to the ordinance
Yeah.
are with Surf. Okay.
so I do
It's good
agree.
to
I mean,
know.
I don't think that we should just take everything on the chin. I mean, it is what it is, but the city has its own abilities to go back and negotiate.
No, but
that
that's
back.
good to know
I didn't
because
bring-
But
this
it should
hasn't,
be, yeah, it should be
this
accounted
hasn't
for.
come up before, and I did ask about that recently and was told, oh, I'll look into it. And,
I'm just
Yeah,
glad we included
so-
that because now there's
Yeah.
no question about,
right,
and
exactly.
they agreed and they put it in the contract part.
Yeah, that they signed, exactly.
So what
So-
is the specific ask, Alderman Perkins, and I make sure that I note it?
No, this is, it's more like
them review.
making aware because I've asked before too, is there something we can do with them, what they keep hitting? And also about finding them or something like that, because I didn't know this ordinance exists. And there should be some, because it's not just one or two, which, okay, one or two, but it's been over almost close to a dozen hits with the two different subcontractors.
I think the issue is this, as I understand it, is that we are incurring costs as a result of what's happening.
Yes.
And, and I don't know to what level we're holding,
Didn't Rob say, though, that they were keeping track of, because I remember he said he had to go out to some of those sites or whatever, like when they had the water, they were already keeping track of that.
well,
go
and that's
back to them
true.
with
I
the-
mean, I
Yes,
think
because he mentioned about in Park Point, keeping track when they went underneath that one street, because there's no sub base, so there's
Yep.
most likely that street's gonna kick, and that, it might come up, pitch up,
Could buckle,
because,
yeah.
Yeah.
with the boring.
Um,
which in our ordinance, and I think actually in the contract that we agreed with them, they're responsible to fix that when it happens.
Yep.
Just a heads up that.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I mean, we haven't had a utility come through this town since Spectrum, and that was how many decades ago?
No, we had that other fiber company goes through
Oh.
town, and.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, 14, but they didn't go.
No, for Jefferson Street.
Yeah.
They tore up my front yard.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
Put this
me
cable
too.
about that big around.
Yeah,
For the cell tower?
No, this was for the schools.
CST 50.
yeah.
Okay. But I mean,
Yeah.
throughout,
And-
like,
and
we
I
haven't
don't
had a
think they
utility
hit
be put in
anything.
throughout town. I mean, like, up and down
Brand
every.
new utilities.
Yeah,
yes, I
brand new
understand what you
utility
mean, yeah.
throughout town. I mean, we've done parts of town, but I'm saying, like, the
Right,
only.
but they managed to do it through an old part of town, and they didn't break anything.
So I'll request, city administrator to, Rob and Donovan to review chapter 6.
Yep.
Ordinance with SURF. Calculation of costs and potential enforcement action.
Great.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Then I guess that going with that, and it's not more of an action or anything, and the mayor now knows about it, and he probably knew about it before, forgot about it. I found out we also had a committee that we don't ever utilize right now in our ordinance. That's architectural committee review. That's in our ordinance with boards and commissions. Because we added the new one, the tree boards in there, because when that got added, and then I saw the beginning one, and that was created in 2009.
So the purpose of it is to
Review every new development, like new buildings, remodels, and additions.
So there's some
Okay.
history on that. We redid Air Street back in 2007 and 8. The intent of that review commission was to make sure that any remodeling
Of Air Street,
of the buildings on Air
stayed
Street
to the old kind of.
complied with the way we wanted everything to look. So
It was a
that-
historical review board.
I'm sorry?
It was a historical review board.
No, that was prior to that.
Well, I'm just saying that's.
It was
the
kind of
purpose.
like that to
That's
make sure it didn't
That's
go
kind of the
too
purpose,
out of,
okay.
which,
But the
yeah.
way it was explained to me this morning from the previous community development superintendent had advised Anne in the past, when she had questioned that, basically what they would use that for is if anyone came to the building department with plans to do any kind of changes to the buildings, and it was something that the building department felt was not in line with how they kind of wanted those things to look, then they would be able to go to this architectural review commission and kind
Which is
of.
Doesn't
us and the
exist.
mayor.
This, so
I'm
would just be
getting to that.
called.
So the
when
reason
needed.
why it really doesn't
But it's
exist
us.
is because nobody really did anything because they couldn't afford it. You know, the bottom dropped out and
Yeah.
the economy tanked and nobody made any changes significant to their buildings on Air Street. So there was no need for it. And as we all know, it's been a long time. I mean, we didn't
Yeah.
get to where we are now overnight. It
Right.
took, so.
Yeah.
It's
And like,
there.
and I talked to
It's not that
Donovan a
it's
little
been
bit this
ignored.
morning.
It's that there wasn't a need.
And I kind of talked to Donovan this morning while I was waiting for Lou, and I see it probably might not need to be a every month thing like all of our other committees, but like I said, with the more development that we've had and new businesses coming into town, and Donovan and we kind of agreed, and you can talk with Donovan, and when this could be the community development type thing, is
Yeah.
if there's something in the UDO that's not specified, to bring it to this board and then kick it to the city council.
Yeah, I mean, if
Yeah.
they're doing a new development or
Yeah.
something like that.
And
I
it's
mean,
even any kind of building too, though, technically. So if they decide they want to do something, and then it's like the UDO doesn't really have it.
Well, it
So
would be
they're
good
not
to-
like dissolve.
yeah.
What I'm saying is, I think it should still be good to have it, but be kind of like maybe like the cow quarterly or whatever, unless something needs to be decided on because they want to build within 2 weeks.
Well, it would probably be good to revisit the purpose and sort of what the scope of the review committee, architectural review committee is, and clarify that, because it's pretty broad.
Well, it sounds
Right
like it
now.
might even be something, I mean, unless there's some kind of reason why we can't, but to me, it would make more sense to dissolve that committee and absorb those duties in with the community development committee, because that's basically would fall within the purview of community development. You already do that
Well, it's,
within a sense.
I mean, just from my experience, the Architectural Review Committee, usually you have a few people in the community who actually have some knowledge of.
Which this ordinance doesn't have that in there.
Yeah.
No, yeah, this ordinance would be made up by city council members,
Right.
not by appointed.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense unless we were to make it like we did with the Parks Board, where you had, community appointed members.
Right, well,
But
that's
then
why
you-
I'm
then you have
saying
the
if we
but
might
then-
want to
yeah.
revisit it and.
So
and-
I was just trying to
Yeah.
do tonight, because I guess, because with admin, it's in the ordinance thing to maybe review
Yeah.
later on dates and see how to adjust that.
What I would say just on my won't have anything to do with me.
Be on the board if we do community members.
Here's where that's what I'm going to say. Well, yeah, I could, but my recommendation, and I say this from my experience with dealing with boards like that or committees like that with work, they are more. They're more I have nothing against bureaucracy. They're unneeded bureaucracy, and usually are not overly functional. Generally, just in the fact that I'm saying like they don't really function in the way that they're meant to, and you usually end up with nothing but a board of subjective people that just don't like anything. So they cause more problems than they solve, is what I'm getting at. So what I would recommend, if people later want to do this, my suggestion would be to, unless there's a dire need for this board to exist, is if you're going to change the ordinance, I would dissolve it. I would absorb it into an existing board that's already working, because those
But
duties
we
are.
don't have a community development board.
Well, no, I mean,
We have a committee.
I would dissolve it and absorb those duties in with an existing committee that can already handle it, because it's not needed very often, and what they would review would be within the typical purviews of what the committees already do. I don't see it unless the town triples in size over in a period of a year. I don't think that it would be wise to establish a new whole committee board.
Well, it's not. It's already technically established. It's
It's fill
city
its ranks, I
council
should say. Make it
and
active.
the mayor. The
Yeah.
mayor's the chairman in
Yeah.
this and for the ordinance.
I think it would be more problematic
So, yeah.
to.
I was just
Make it
saying,
active.
because it's there and it's us. It's not. We're not creating it. So maybe just look into it another date. So the other quick thing I had, and I know Charlie. It's almost 2 hours going. I told Deb it's going to be a long meeting.
I mean, we've got a quorum. If Charlie wants to head out, we've got a quorum, and we're not
No,
voting
it's
on
not-
anything
it's-
else.
and
So.
it's thing.
Me, the bad guy.
The only thing is, I'm going to say, because this is admin.
Nobody's chained you to the desk.
This is admin. The only thing there was an email sent out last week or early this week. I think that should have been dealt with just that person, those two people, and the mayor, and it should have been sent to the whole city council. And that's my belief on that one. That's all I'm going to say. Not going to name names.
Done?
I don't
That
know.
was
I
it.
missed it. I missed that one, so we'll let it go.
Yeah.
I don't know. Cool. All right.
That's all. I'm just
No,
saying that should have
all
been
right.
dealt with.
Make
With
a
them.
motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good job. Thank you.
We could always turn it over to the Department of Redundancy Department.